observed with oral treatments. In addition to guarantee the patient compliance to its treatment, BEPO potentially enables to enhance the efficacy of the active ingredient, to lower the dose of active ingredient compared to oral treatment, to reduce or prevent some side effects specific to oral medications, and to lower environmental footprint of the treatment. At Medincell, we develop long-acting injectable treatments using our proprietary platform technology called BEPO. BEPO is a versatile drug delivery technology that can be used to formulate a broad range of active ingredients in order to create innovative injectable treatments in many therapeutic areas. Each BEPO treatment is a unique formulation composed of a mixture of biosorbable block copolymers, an active ingredient, and a solvent. The formulation of each treatment is tailor-made according to the properties of the active ingredient and therapeutic objectives. We control the release of the drug with duration of action spanning from a few days to over a year. The long-acting injectable treatments based on BEPO are in the form of a solution or a suspension of the drug and may be developed as pre-filled syringes ready to use. They can be administered locally for targeted action or injected subcutaneously using a small needle for systemic delivery. Upon injection and contact with body fluids, an in situ depot forms instantly. The drug is entrapped inside the depot and the controlled release is initiated. With time, the depot biodegrades, thereby ensuring the complete release of the drug and leaving no residues. BEPO allows immediately the controlled release of an active ingredient within the therapeutic window, avoiding peak-to-trough daily fluctuations traditionally observed with oral treatments. In addition to guarantee the patient compliance to its treatment, BEPO potentially enables to enhance the efficacy of the active ingredient, to lower the dose of active ingredient compared to oral treatment, to reduce or prevent some side effects specific to oral medications, and to lower environmental footprint of the treatment. At Medincell, we develop long-acting injectable treatments using our proprietary platform technology called BEPO. BEPO is a versatile drug delivery technology that can be used to formulate a broad range of active ingredients in order to create innovative injectable treatments in many therapeutic areas. Each BEPO treatment is a unique formulation composed of a mixture of biosorbable block copolymers, an active ingredient, and a solvent. The formulation of each treatment is tailor-made according to the properties of the active ingredient and therapeutic objectives. We control the release of the drug with duration of action spanning from a few days to over a year. The long-acting injectable treatments based on BEPO are in the form of a solution or a suspension of the drug and may be developed as pre-filled syringes ready to use. They can be administered locally for targeted action or injected subcutaneously using a small needle for systemic delivery. Upon injection and contact with body fluids, an in situ depot forms instantly. The drug is entrapped inside the depot and the controlled release is initiated. With time, the depot biodegrades, thereby ensuring the complete release of the drug and leaving no residues. BPO allows immediately the controlled release of an active ingredient within the therapeutic window, avoiding peak-to-trough daily fluctuations traditionally observed with oral treatments. In addition to guarantee the patient compliance to its treatment, BPO potentially enables to enhance the efficacy of the active ingredient, to lower the dose of active ingredient compared to oral treatment, to reduce or prevent some side effects specific to oral medications, and to lower environmental footprint of the treatment. At MedinCell, we develop long-acting injectable treatments using our proprietary platform technology called BPO. BPO is a versatile drug delivery technology that can be used to formulate a broad range of active ingredients in order to create innovative injectable treatments in many therapeutic areas. Each BPO treatment is a unique formulation composed of a mixture of bioabsorbable block copolymers, an active ingredient, and a solvent. The formulation of each treatment is tailor-made according to the properties of the active ingredient and therapeutic objectives. We control the release of the drug with duration of action spanning from a few days to over a year. The long-acting injectable treatments based on BPO are in the form of a solution or a suspension of the drug and may be developed as pre-filled syringes ready to use. They can be administered locally for targeted action or injected subcutaneously using a small needle for systemic delivery. Upon injection and contact with body fluids, an in situ depot forms instantly. The drug is entrapped inside the depot and the controlled release is initiated. With time, the depot biodegrades, thereby ensuring the complete release of the drug and leaving no residues. BPO allows immediately the controlled release of an active ingredient within the therapeutic window, avoiding peak-to-trough daily fluctuations traditionally observed with oral treatments. In addition to guarantee the patient compliance to its treatment, BPO potentially enables to enhance the efficacy of the active ingredient, to lower the dose of active ingredient compared to oral treatment, to reduce or prevent some side effects specific to oral medications, and to lower environmental footprint of the treatment. At MedinCell, we develop long-acting injectable treatments using our proprietary platform technology called BPO. BPO is a versatile drug delivery technology that can be used to formulate a broad range of active ingredients in order to create innovative injectable treatments in many therapeutic areas. Each BPO treatment is a unique formulation composed of a mixture of bioabsorbable block copolymers, an active ingredient, and a solvent. The formulation of each treatment is tailor-made according to the properties of the active ingredient and therapeutic objectives. We control the release of the drug with duration of...
Bonsoir, bonjour, bienvenue à toutes et à tous. Nous sommes heureux de vous accueillir aujourd'hui pour la présentation de nos résultats semestriels. Nous avons mis en ligne il y a quelques minutes maintenant un communiqué de presse avec le détail de ce résultat. Et maintenant, je me retrouve dans ce studio ici avec Christophe Douat, le président du directoire de MedinCell.
Bonjour David.
Stéphane Postic pour la première fois, notre directeur financier.
Bonjour David.
Et en direct avec nous des États-Unis, le docteur Richard Malamut, notre directeur médical. Hi Richard.
Merci David.
Alors, avant de commencer, je vous invite à prendre connaissance des avertissements concernant les éventuelles déclarations prospectives. dans la deuxième slide de la présentation que vous retrouverez sur notre site internet juste après cette vidéoconférence. Alors, notre rendez-vous maintenant est en français, mais il est traduit en live en anglais, donc vous pouvez accéder
some live interpreting,
en live sur notre site internet.
and you can follow it in English or French, either on our website or on our YouTube channel. We've already received quite a few questions in recent days, even before having published our results, so we will answer these once we have given you an overview over the past half year. But you can continue to send us in your questions live, as we usually do, and we'll try and answer as many questions as possible. This meeting will last at the most 1 hour. So with no further delay, we will begin with you, Christophe. Christophe, obviously, the half-year event is the approval and marketing of our first USD product. Yes, of course, David, this was a tremendous piece of news. But the real challenge now is the commercial success. And the good news is that the trends are very positive. Hundreds of patients are beginning to be treated each week with USD. We can't yet draw any permanent conclusions, but the trends are there. And it looks very promising. So I'm echoing what Tiva said. The launch is going according to plan, and it's a success. The feedback from patients are excellent. Those are the prescribers, the doctors also, and Richard will talk to us about that in a few minutes. But once again, it's the proof that USD is a best-in-class treatment. And if it's best-in-class, David, it's thanks to our technology. For the time being, the ramp-up is going well. Teva is just unrolling its plan with its marketing team and is doing all of the necessary work with regard to the payers, in particular Medicare, Medicaid, and all that. And that is what we call access in the pharmaceutical market world. And Teva is planning full access, so that's access to all of these players during 2024. Thank you, Christophe, for this first information on the semester, which is very positive. The second piece of information comes from our Teva partner, which is related to the second product developed by Teva, which is currently in phase 3. And regarding phase 3, Teva is talking about picking up the pace. Yep, there's a lot of excitement around MDCT-JK. We explained why, and Richard will repeat this. And l'accélération et les résultats de cette accélération sont vraiment spectaculaires. On comprend que les enjeux sont colossaux et cette fois-ci, on a un produit véritablement first in class. Fin novembre, Teva l'a annoncé, il y avait déjà 600 patients sur les 640 nécessaires à la phase 3. Ça veut dire que le recrutement est quasiment terminé et on peut en déduire qu'on aura des résultats dans la deuxième moitié de l'année. Richard, en tant qu'expert clinique, nous expliquera ce qu'on peut attendre comme timeline pour le reste du programme. Si le produit est approuvé, comme il n'y a pas de concurrent véritable à MDCT-JK, on pourra s'attendre à un ramp-up encore plus rapide que even faster ramp up than for USD. So if we take things further, Christophe, it's a bit of a side, 600 patients out of 640 to assess, but also our PDSS.
Exactement, j'ai oublié de le dire. Merci de le dire.
Yes, I forgot to say that. That's the best news of all. It is that today there is no PDSS. You know that what created the failure of our product, a cure a few years ago on an injectable with Onsapine, and our product also, thanks to Medincell technology, has zero PDSS. At the time at which
un premier produit sur le marché, des royalties pour Medincell, une deuxième phase 3 qui s'accélère. Quelles conséquences pour Medincell avec ces deux premiers produits?
What consequences for Medincell with these first two products? It's very exciting.
Parce que si les tendances
if the USD trends are confirmed and TJK is approved,
et démarre
and starts its sales well as well, it means that we will entirely transform our company. And thanks to these two events, without counting the rest, our objective can be to become very quickly and sustainably profitable. And that is tremendous because it will allow us to acquire our freedom and also to move ahead towards the future. And we will be able to achieve this, as I said, only with UZD and MDC-TJK as from 2026, so in the tax year that will close on the 31st of March 2027. And of course, we need to rigorously, stringently control our expenditure. So you say, well, what are you going to do between now and then? Of course, our objective between now and then is to bridge with the revenues from new partners so that we don't need to increase our capital.
C'est notre objectif.
That is our objective.
Donc, de nouveaux partenariats
so new partners in sight? Is that what we can understand? What are the dynamics at that level?
Attention, pas faire de lapsus.
Well, I don't want
to répété, j'ai dit évidemment, au lieu de dire je ne peux évidemment pas répondre
because when we were rehearsing, I said, obviously I cannot answer
directement à cette information-là.
I cannot directly answer that information. It's ultra confidential.
Mais comme prévu, on est très actifs sur ce front. L'approbation de UZD par la FDA
with the approval of UZD by the FDA was a complete validation of our technology, and now we're on the radar of the big pharmas.
Merci Christophe.
Thank you, Christophe. So if we summarize what you've just said, so what are the take-home messages here? Well, I think there are 4 take-home messages. Let's keep it very simple. Firstly, the launch of UZD up until now is a success, very promising. Secondly, the acceleration of MDC-TJK with olanzapine is spectacular, and we have no PDS to date. Third, our roadmap is clear. It is to achieve profitability. And fourthly, our objective is to create new structuring partnerships.
Merci Christophe.
Thank you, Christophe. Very clear, I think. So we talked about Richard, so let's turn to Richard now, who might bring us a few clarifications on what we've just talked about and maybe develop, our product portfolio. Richard, can you hear us?
I can hear you well, David.
Very good, Richard. So there is a simultaneous translation in French, so there might be a little bit of a gap at the end, so there might be a few pauses, just so that everybody can hear all of the sounds properly. Richard, can you talk to us directly about the launch of UZD? Christophe has given us some idea, and the information that we have from Teva from a medical point of view.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, UZEDY is best in class for a long-acting injectable risperidone, and we've talked before about some of the advantages in regard to coming in pre-filled syringes, subcutaneous formulation, so less painful, and an immediate within 24 hours therapeutic level, differentiating it from the existing long-acting injectable risperidone formulations. And back in May, just prior to the launch, I did speak with some of the psychiatrists about the coming UZEDY at the American Psychiatric Association meeting, and they were quite enthusiastic about the coming of UZEDY. But of course, you don't know until it's out on the market. And in fact, as we've heard from our partner Teva, it's doing quite well. Psychiatrists are prescribing it. As we've now heard, and are continuing to prescribe it. It's early days, it's only been out for a little more than 6 months, so we'll see what 2024 brings. But so far, we're hearing very good things about UZEDY from the clinicians and the hospitals where it's being used.
Thank you, Richard. Christophe also talked about the acceleration of phase 3 for MDC-TJK. That's another product with Teva. So a simple question to begin with. How can you accelerate a clinical study, Richard?
Yeah, so TJK is the long-acting injectable olanzapine, which began phase 3 at the very beginning of this year. And it's done quite well in terms of study recruitment. Christophe mentioned that it's already recruited more than 600 of the target 640 patients. and that was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we're anticipating that it'll reach full recruitment by sometime next month. So then you may ask, if it's already nearly complete, where is the acceleration? Well, acceleration can also be on the activities of the CRO who operates the study, on data analysis, all meaning that data can be available much quicker than otherwise might, given the focus on acceleration. And we're anticipating that the study will finish its primary endpoint, which is 8 weeks after last patient in, sometime end of first quarter, early second quarter. There will be some time for cleaning of the data, making sure the data is of high quality. Then there'll be what's called database lock, and after that will come the results. Teva will take some time to analyze the results, but is very much on target for reporting results in the second half of 2024, potentially early in that half, given the current timelines. And then, after hopefully positive results are seen, there will be a preparation of the NDA, the new drug application, to be filed sometime very early in 2025.
Thank you, Richard, for these clarifications. It's always interesting to have an expert of pharmaceutical development who gives us a little bit of a perspective on these developments, because it's always something which is rather tricky for neophytes. So let's move on to the other program, which is in phase 3, that is NDC-CWM. That's for the treatment of post-op pain. It's a local treatment. So the deadlines are even closer because, Richard, we're expecting results in a few weeks, in the first quarter of 2024. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So CWM is an intra-articular celecoxib placed in the knee at time of total knee replacement surgery, which is a very painful surgery. And this product is meant to mitigate the need for opioids, or at least high-dose opioids, as well as improve range of motion about the knee and an earlier return to normal function. And as you can see on the screen, our AIC, our partner, finished the first phase 3 in terms of recruitment in August, with the last patient completing the 3-month follow-up at the end of November. And just as we discussed with olanzapine, there'll be some time now cleaning the data, again, making sure the data is of high quality. There will be a database lock, and then we'll have top-line results to report to you sometime in first quarter of 2024. At that point, depending on the results and the strength of what we hope to be positive results, there will be internal discussions with our partner AIC, and then meetings with the FDA to discuss potential next study or studies needed to gain approval of the drug.
Thank you very much, Richard. We'll come back to you a little bit later on when we have some questions for you. But now let's talk about finances, because we are here to present our financial results today. With you, Stéphane. Welcome, Stéphane. So the first question, Stéphane, is simple. You know, what are the take-home messages from this past half year? In our accounts, with this half year closed on 30th of September 2023, the financial year is delayed a little bit. So first of all, let's talk about our revenue from ordinary activities, which amounted to 8.2 million euros for the semester, which is a growth of 6% compared to the previous year. In this 8.2 million, there are 7 million turnover, and the turnover itself has progressed by 15.9% under the combined effect of different factors. First of all, the invoicing to Teva of the first marketing of UZEDY as a milestone, the first royalties on the sales of UZEDY, which were made by Teva in the States, which we have been expecting for a long time, and growing royalties from the CM Biomaterials joint venture, which adds to the whole and is explained by the global growth of CMB's business for all Medincell partners. Regarding our operational expenditure, these have diminished by 12% compared to the previous year and represent 17.1 million euros over the past half year. So this increase in revenue combined with the reduction in operational expenditure and the fact that we have generated a financial product on the semester of 823,000 euros as compared to a loss of 2.1 million in the previous year, leads to a very high reduction of net losses, which amount to 5.5 million euros, and that's a reduction of 40%. It's very significant. We went from a net loss in the first semester of the previous financial year of 13.7 million euros to a loss of 8.2 for the half year that we've just closed. So we're on the right trajectory as we announced. Yes, indeed, we are dead on course. Shall we talk about cash flow? Yes, so for cash flow, once again, a very clear improvement compared to the closing of the last closing of the last financial year, 31st of March 2023. At that time, we had 6.5 million euros of cash flow. At the 30th of September 2023, the cash flow amounted to 26.7 million euros. The main elements that explain this increase are the funds raised last May for 23.4 million euros net of expenses, the drawing of the third slice of the European Investment Bank loan, and then the invoicing with the first milestone of UZD and the royalties and pre-funding of the CIR in 2021 that we obtained during the semester. I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that since the closing, we have brought in more than 4.200 million euros of CIR 2022, and we've already also had a payment of $2.8 million from the Gates Foundation within the framework of the MDC WVVM project, which consolidates our cash flow position. Thank you, Stéphane. Let's come back to what Christophe was saying earlier on. In particular, we talked about UZD, we talked about UZD royalties. A comment maybe on these first royalties. Yes, of course.
Je pense que c'était un des éléments qui était très attendu sur le semestre. Donc les premiers royalties ont été à Teva et encaissés récemment. Alors le montant reste encore un peu modeste pour l'instant, c'est vrai, mais c'est également important parce que ça marque un véritable tournant dans l'étincelle. Les royalties sur les 4 premiers mois de commercialisation ont représenté environ $700,000, convertis en euros, 635 000 euros. Comme l'a dit Christophe tout à l'heure, il faut savoir qu'il y a un énorme travail de Teva, à la fois au niveau des équipes commerciales, au niveau du réglementaire auprès des payeurs, Medicare et Medicaid, pour que l'intégralité des prescripteurs aux États-Unis puissent prescrire UZD à leurs patients. Et ça se fait étape par étape. Donc ça prend beaucoup de temps, c'est un passage obligé pour nos médicaments.
It is a mandatory passage for all of our drugs. It takes a long time and it's a weighted process, and this will be completed at the beginning of 2024. And from that point on, we will see a real rise in royalties that Medincell will receive for UZD. For information purposes, the financial analysts who are monitoring the Teva share are projecting sales of 2024 of around $80 to $125 million for 2024. So the first royalties that we brought in are just the beginning. And UZD has a lot of growth to come in our profession. We consider that to achieve peak sales, which is the maximum yearly amount that a product can be sold at. It takes about 5 to 6 years. So these are the outlooks that we have ahead of us.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Christophe
also talked earlier on about our objective of profitability.
Tu es le directeur financier.
You're the financial director. I think that's a question directly for you.
Tout à fait. C'est un plaisir d'avoir cet enjeu chez Medincell.
To have this challenge in Medincell. So this directly concerns you. Can you talk to us about this? Yes, indeed. This is our clear objective today, one of our priority objectives. And it is based on hypotheses that are very conservative. It's clearly accessible for us. So as Christophe has already said, at the very latest in the financial year 26-27, which will be closed in March 2027, we think that our revenues can cover our operational expenditure. Of course, that is on condition that UZD trends are confirmed at the MDCO approved by the FDA. But from that point on, we will at least, balance out or be profitable. So that is the roadmap we have today. Today, our cash horizon is in the first semester of 2025, but things could change quickly, in particular with new partnerships that we mentioned. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So let's move on to the questions. As I said, John, we have a lot of questions. We received a lot of questions before the conference, and now we're getting a lot more in as we go along. So we're going to try. We're ready. So before we take the questions that you're sending us via the chat, via the live chat, which we'll answer, I will ask the questions that we received by email from a number of shareholders in recent days. The first question is for Richard. So I'm going to say the question as it was written. Richard will ask, what are the geographical zones that accept the FDA regulation within the framework of a possible expansion of UZD? And that means the expansion of the marketing zone for UZD. Can you explain to us how things work?
Of course. So first of all, Teva has not disclosed its strategy for expanding UZD beyond the US. Know that they are planning to expand approvals beyond the US. But to specifically answer the question, the question I think reflects whether additional phase 3 studies would be needed to gain approval in other regions or other countries. And for the most part, they will not be. In Europe, there needs to be sufficient numbers of European patients in the phase 3 study conducted by Teva, and that it will be a review issue. In Latin America, LATAM, South America, Australia, Indonesia, Korea, generally the FDA approval is sufficient and additional phase 3 studies are not needed. In contrast, in China and Japan, typically additional phase 3 studies utilizing Chinese ethnic or Japanese ethnic patients is required. But again, Teva is keeping its strategy non-public for now as to where and how they will expand the approval for UZD.
Merci, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Christophe, the next question is for you. Can you clarify how you calculate the 35% of NBAX? Can you explain? This is a figure that was given by Teva recently, at the beginning of November. Can you explain what NBRX means and what we're talking about when we're talking about 55%? Well, yes, it's important to comment this because this is the figure that Tiva put the spotlight on in his presentation.
NBRX, c'est les nouvelles prescriptions.
So it is actually new
Mais là, ce qu'il faut
prescriptions.
comprendre, c'est que
And what you must understand is that the 55% that Tiva is referring to, and they moreover detailed this, Sven, the marketing director, detailed this in a conference end of November. These 55% of patients that migrate to a long-action injectable with risperidone. What we must understand behind this is that LAIs, risperidone LAIs today, represent the first generations of Janssen LAIs, and another more recent project which is called Perseris, but which is not sold very much because its characteristics are it's not as performant. But that's just a small part of the entire potential of
le low-hanging fruit, comme on dit en anglais, donc c'était ce qui est atteignable le plus facilement parce que c'est des patients qui peuvent basculer directement sur UZD parce qu'ils allaient basculer sur la risperidone et parce que ces produits-là sont vieille génération. Teva pour le moment n'a pas, et là on prend, enfin Teva prend 55% de ce marché.
Teva is taking 55% of that market, which is significant.
Teva n'a pas divulgué,
Teva has not revealed what share it is taking of new generations of Janssen products, which are all called Invega something, and which are based on a variant of risperidone, which is called aliperidone, and that is the bulk of the market. So I suppose that for competitive reasons, Teva is not talking about it, but of course it is a main target for them. Was that clear? I think so.
Merci.
Okay, thank you.
Si ce n'était pas clair, vous pouvez toujours
if it
demander
wasn't
des
clear, you
précisions
can always ask for
via le chat.
clarifications via the chat.
Richard, notre question, celle-ci concerne
Richard, this
NDC
question
TJK.
is
On nous
for
demande si
NDC
TJK pourrait potentiellement être éligible à
Could
une
this possibly
priority
be
review
TJK?
de la
Could this
FDA
potentially be
au vu de
eligible
la
for
différence
priority review of the FDA due to the
significative versus
significant difference of
Zyprexa?
safety
Alors, pour
versus
commencer, Richard, peut-être expliquer
Zyprexa?
ce qu'est
So
serait
maybe
une
Richard,
priority
you could
review.
maybe explain first what a priority review is and what Zyprexa is, and this safety challenge. Can you put it in context and answer the question? Would this be possible, yes or no, knowing that we are not responsible for development, so it is maybe a little bit difficult to answer. The floor is yours, Richard.
Yeah, so again, I'll start with saying that Teva has not disclosed its regulatory strategy for the submission of the NDA for olanzapine. But just to give you some context, we already mentioned that they're looking to file the NDA of olanzapine sometime likely early in 2025. A standard review time for the agency is 10 months. An expedited review can be granted, which shortens the time to review by 4 months, so a 6-month review time. Now, typically that expedited review is granted for products or APIs that provide meaningful benefit to patients in a way that existing products do not, or provide something novel in its chemistry or its efficacy. So there is a case to be made by Teva for submitting this and asking for expedited review. The question would be asked at time of filing. Based on the fact that, as we've heard, olanzapine LAI, there's only one approved product, which is not really being used. So this does provide some meaningful differentiation. So it is possible that Teva will ask for and FDA will grant, but look, let's wait for the positive data first on the phase 3 results. And then we can go from there.
So that would be good news. As Richard says, let's be patient. So the next question is for you, Christophe. We're asked whether we can say a bit more about the MDC-GRT, which is an R&D portfolio product which is in preclinical phase and destined for people who receive a transplant. what of an organ, what type of partnership. So MDCGRT is a preclinical phase, and the objective is to enter into phase 1 during 2024. All of these programs have the vocation of being done in partnership. And in this specific case, we think that phase 1 will be necessary before we can find a partner.
Parfait.
Very good.
Stéphane, alors, on nous demandait,
a question for you.
C'est des questions reçues
These are
avant
questions
la
that we
présentation.
received
Quand
before the
seront
presentation.
précisément annoncées
When
les
will the
premières
first royalties
perçues
perceived by Medincell be announced? Well, that's done.
Deuxième question,
But there was a second question after that one regarding use
d'après le trend
revenue.
actuel des ventes,
According to the current sales trends, do
commencez à
you
percevoir une
think
petite portion
that
des
you
105 millions de
will
dollars de
start to
milestones
perceive a
commerciaux
small
en
portion
2024
of
ou
the
2025
commercial
ou plus tard?
milestones in 2024 or 2025 or later on?
Si on veut être
Well,
conservateur,
if we
on
want
va
to
dire
be
qu'on
conservative,
plus probablement
it
en
will
2026,
no doubt be
mais
more
on garde un bon
2026,
espoir
but
que
we
ça
do
puisse
hope that
arriver
this
avant,
can be
2025,
pushed
par
forwards into 2025, for example. Thank you.
Richard,
Richard,
question suivante.
the next
Alors,
question.
actuellement, il y a
So
trois
currently
produits
there are
qui
3
devraient
products
passer
which
en
should
clinique,
be moving
produits de
into
portefeuille interne en 2024.
internal
dont
clinical
GRT,
portfolio
dont
in
on parlait tout à l'heure,
2024.
c'est ça.
So the
Richard nous
GRPs that we
demande quelle est
talked
la
about earlier on.
prévision de durée de
Richard, we're
chacune des
asked
3 phases 1
what
de
will
ces
the
3 programmes
duration
qui
of the
devraient
3
rentrer en
first
clinique en
phases be
2024.
that should
Richard.
enter clinical trials in 2024? Richard.
Yeah, so it is a bit premature to answer that question. We, for all of our phase 1 programs, we do anticipate discussions with the regulatory authorities, either FDA or in the case of STM with the MHRA in UK. We do need to gain their agreement and approval of our clinical protocol, as well as our plans for the program. Once we have that, we should be able to come back to you with a little more information about the total duration of the studies. The one thing I should caution is that these are long-acting injectable products, not a small molecule where dosing is done every day. So there should be an expectation that the duration of the phase 1s in general will be somewhat longer than a typical phase 1 with an oral pill or tablet.
I'm going to add a word that because I think that what Richard is describing is an essential step. Medincell 10 years ago was a formulation company, and in recent years, Medincell has managed to build a tremendous amount of skills and competencies in what we call CMC, in clinical and regulatory. CMC is what allows us to create batches for the clinical trials in conditions of extreme quality, compliance with regulations to lead these clinical trials.
Et donc c'est extrêmement complexe parce
So
que
it's
vous
extremely
imaginez
complex
il faut qu'on
because you
fasse ça
can
sur des
imagine that we
conditions
must
de
do
qualité
these in
réglementaire
regulatory
contraignantes.
quality conditions that are
Et donc
extremely
on a attiré des experts
stringent,
dans ce
and
domaine-là
therefore we have attracted
qui
experts in this
sur ces
field
3 programmes
and who for
ont
these 3
réussi à
programs
faire ces
have
lots
managed to
dans des
create these
normes
batches
drastiques pharmaceutiques.
in compliance
C'est
with
important pour les 3
very
programmes que vient de citer
drastic
Richard,
pharmaceutical
mais aussi ça change
standards.
complètement l'attractivité de Medincell. Parce
This
que maintenant, vis-à-vis de partenaires
changes
extérieurs, non
Medincell's
seulement
attractiveness
Medincell
greatly
sait
because
faire
with
des
regard to
formulations,
external
en tout cas,
partnerships, not
on
only
réussit
does
pas toujours,
Medincell know
mais
how
on peut
to do
prétendre à faire des
formulation,
formulations qui sont
we can
best in
create
class,
formulations
hein,
that are
on
best
l'a
in
vu maintenant
class.
à
We've
plusieurs
seen
reprises,
this now on
mais aussi
occasions, but
à faire les
also
étapes suivantes.
we
Et ça,
managed to
c'est
proceed with the
extrêmement
following
rassurant
steps, and that's very
pour un
reassuring
partenaire de
for
savoir que
a partner
Medincell
to know that
peut faire
Medincell
ses
can
activités
proceed with
de l'eau
the
clinique
next steps of
et réglementaire et clinique
clinical
pour
and
accompagner les
regulatory
partenaires
procedures
vers la suite.
to support the partners
Merci pour ces
towards the
précisions.
future. Thank you for these clarifications.
Question pour toi, Stéphane.
A
Aujourd'hui,
question
on nous
for you,
demande si nous
Stefan.
prévoyons
Today we're
de
asked whether
refinancer à de
we will
meilleures
be
conditions auprès de
refinancing
la
in
BEI
better
ou
conditions
d'autres
with the
partenaires
European
financiers
Investment
certaines
Bank or with
tranches
other
de la dette souscrite
financial
auprès de la
partnerships.
BEI. Et je vais aller au bout de la question parce qu'on nous
Parts
précise
of
entre
the
parenthèses que le
debt.
taux de la tranche
They're
A, par
specified
exemple, est
that
très
the
élevé,
rate for the first
sans compter la
part
rémunération
was
variable
very high,
octroyée en complément.
without accounting the variable
documentation
remuneration
financière
that should
est
be added.
lue avec
Yes, I can see that our
attention
financial
par
documentation
la
is
partie
read
et
very
on s'en
carefully.
réjouit.
And we're delighted about that.
J'ai évidemment bien en tête cette question de l'endettement de la BEI. Et effectivement, facialement, un taux qui peut paraître élevé, mais je voudrais d'abord repréciser que grâce à la BEI, effectivement, Medincel a pu progresser de façon significative au cours de ces dernières années. Donc c'est vraiment un partenaire privilégié et on a eu beaucoup de chance. Toutes les entreprises n'arrivent pas à convaincre la BEI, mais nous, on a pu le faire. Donc il faut relativiser ce coût qui peut paraître un petit peu élevé, sachant que, bien évidemment,
given that, of course, any standard bank would not have funded us and would not have stood by our sides to support us in our development.
Les remboursements que l'on doit faire à la BEI
reimbursements that we must give to the EIB
du prêt sont pour 2027 et 2028.
Mostly for 2027, 2028. So that does leave us a little bit more time to prepare for this. And I think that first of all, we must have greater visibility on USD royalties and also on the marketing of TJK before we go back to the EIB. And at that point, if we must do it, then we will renegotiate with the EIB, or we will go for other more standard banking facilities, because we will have regular financial income. Or there are a number of other possibilities also. We were also contacted by companies that pre-finance future royalties. And if we close the loop with what we were saying at the beginning, our priority remains the signing of new partnership contracts with new pharma companies. And so there is a whole range of possibilities out there for us
traiter cette question de la dette BEI.
To help us deal with this question of the EIB debt. So there are also the milestones, Stéphane. So in 2028, it will be the fifth year of marketing of USD, maybe the second of TJK. With regard to the timing,
à peu près le bon
timing.
Là, on commence à rentrer davantage dans beaucoup d'hypothèses. Donc,
there are a lot of hypotheses there, of course, but
on aura le temps de
we will have time to prepare and talk together a certain number of times before we actually reach that stage. Christophe.
On nous demande si nous avons
we're asked whether we have any in-house programs,
que le public ne connaît pas,
owner programs that the general public is not aware of and which might be the object of an announcement. If so, when can we announce these to the market? So let's review this question. Are there in-house programs that nobody knows about or maybe with other partners? And will we make these programs public? And if so, when?
Merci pour la question.
Well, thank you for the question.
C'est une question qui tombe à pic parce que j'ai juste demandé à David cette semaine d'agrandir la petite boîte qu'il y avait en bas à gauche de notre portfolio avec marqué programme interne et formulation.
Formulation
remettre à sa juste valeur.
Je ne suis pas sûr qu'elle soit encore à cette valeur, mais on s'en rapproche.
I'm not sure that it's still at its right value.
On a deux boîtes, d'ailleurs, je me permets de répondre en partie à la question. On a deux boîtes maintenant, une boîte de programme interne et une boîte de programme en partenariat.
One for in-house programs and one.
Non, c'est pas la peine.
It doesn't mean you need to measure the size of the box.
Mais néanmoins, oui, dans cette boîte,
but in that
des
box,
choses très
there are some very interesting things.
Environ une dizaine de programmes.
About a dozen in-house programs that are in the stage of formulation, so it's very early days.
Et dans cette boîte,
and in that box,
une moitié
about half are in partnership with pharmaceutical or biotech companies, and the other half come from in-house programs.
Si ces programmes internes,
if these in-house programs were chosen, they're chosen carefully. When we choose an in-house program, it's to take it through the subsequent steps. So we do a lot of studies, so we validate its potential, and we align it with medical needs, financial potential, competition, its patenting, etc.
Et évidemment, si on les choisit pour investir nous-mêmes, c'est qu'ils ont du potentiel.
It's because there's a lot of potential there. And therefore there's a potential to develop partnerships around.
Mais on ne sait pas à quelle étape.
But we don't know at what
stage.
L'avenir
le dira.
And the future will tell us this, of course.
Et ces programmes,
And these programs today,
certains d'entre eux sont jugés
some of
stratégiques
them are,
par nous-mêmes pour Medincell.
we judge are strategic for Medincell.
On nous pose des questions sur l'étude
So
TTG,
we're asked a
phase 2,
question on the
dont le résultat a été
TTG phase
publié,
2,
en janvier dernier.
which was published in last January. Are we carrying on with this study? How was this study received? So TTG is, to remind you, for COVID-19. Yep, the objective was to develop an LAI for ivermectin to protect patients against the COVID. Then there were some polemics around ivermectin, and we decided to do a phase 2 with oral ivermectin that we completed, and we gave the results in 2022. And the results will be published in a scientific journal, I hope, in 2024. And these results were very positive because we have a reduction of 73% of the rate of infection
en prévention, donc post-exposure
in prevention and post-exposure.
Donc, comment ont été évaluer ces résultats par des experts? Je vais citer son nom anonyme, mais un ancien Chief Medical Officer d'une des plus grandes sociétés de vaccins mondiaux,
vaccine companies in the world, and he qualified these results as spectacular.
Cette étude a réussi.
This study managed to
les autres traitements ont échoué.
Succeeded where all other treatments
Malheureusement,
failed
ça a
for
pris
COVID.
du temps.
Unfortunately, all of this took
Les
time.
moyens de Medincell,
With
on
Medincell
s'est d'abord
means
frotté à la
we
polémique
first of all
sur
came up against
l'ivermectin,
the polemics
et
around
puis à la
ivermectin,
normalisation du Covid.
and then the
Je vous
normalization of
rappelle qu'on a mis
COVID.
ce
I'd like
projet
to
donc
recall
en
that we
stand-by
put this
il
project
y a maintenant,
on
si ma
stand-by,
mémoire est bonne, il y a
if
un
I
an
remember,
environ.
about a year ago
environ.
now.
Donc aujourd'hui,
So today,
il est en stand-by.
it is
C'est un
on
programme qui
standby.
pourrait être réactivé
It is a program that
rapidement.
can be
Et là, je
very
parle de la
quickly
version
reactivated, and here I'm
longue
talking
action,
about the
qui
LAI
pourrait être
version,
réactivé si
which
besoin
can be
était,
reactivated
soit sur le
if
Covid,
need be,
soit sur
either
d'autres
for COVID
indications,
or other
puisque
therapeutic
l'ivermectine,
indications, because
on le sait,
ivermectin,
peut
as we
être
know,
active sur d'autres
is
virus.
active on other viruses also. Thank you, Christophe.
On a encore plein de questions.
So we still have a lot of
répondre
questions we're going to try
bien,
and
mais un peu
answer
rapidement,
well,
parce
but maybe a
qu'il
bit
faut pas
quickly,
donner
because
de frustration.
so that we don't generate any frustration
Stéphane
there.
nous
So
demande
Stéphane,
quel est le
we're
chiffre
asked
d'affaires de
what
CM
is the
Materials
turnover of
sur
CM
le
Materials
semestre.
over
Alors,
the
CM
half-year
Materials,
period.
pour donner le nom. Et si on peut donner un ordre de
And
grandeur en
if we
chiffre
can
d'affaires
give an
attendant
idea
2024
of the
CM
turnover
Biomaterials,
expected
ce que
for CM
représente
Biomaterials in
UZD dans
2024,
ce chiffre
and what
d'affaires.
UZD
Alors,
represents in
la
that
parole, je rappelle
turnover.
que CM
So before giving the
Biomaterials,
floor,
c'est une
CM
entreprise que nous
Biomaterials
avons
is the company
avec
that
Corbion,
we have with Corbion,
qui est un des leaders
and which is
mondiaux
one of the
pour la
global
fabrication
leaders for the
de
manufacturing
copolymères, de
of
polymères médicaux.
copolymers
Donc,
and medical
c'est
polymers.
cette
And
entreprise qui
it is
fournit à
this
tous nos
company
partenaires
that
et
provides
aussi
to
pour
all of
nos
our
programmes
partners, and
internes
also for our in-house
les
programs,
polymères qui rentrent dans la
the
composition
polymers that
dans la
enter into the
formulation de nos
composition and
produits,
formulation of our
à
product,
la fois dans le labo, mais aussi pour
both
les lots
in the lab,
commerciaux
but also
que
for
Teva
commercial batches,
utilise aujourd'hui.
and that's what TV uses today.
Donc, pour répondre
So
rapidement à la
to
question,
very quickly answer the question,
encaissé sur
we have,
le premier semestre
in the first
650
semester,
000
cashed in
euros
650,000 euros of
de la
royalty
part de CMB.
from
Et
CMB.
sur le reste
And
de la
for the
question,
rest of the
sur les
question
projections sur
regarding
2024,
forecasts in
malheureusement, je vais
2024,
pas
unfortunately, I will not
me
be able
prononcer.
to
Et,
answer
ni sur la part qui
either
représente
on the
UZD
share that
aujourd'hui
UZD
dans
represents
l'activité
today
de
in
CMB.
CMB's business.
Il y aura des chiffres sur
There
CMB
will be
dans
figures
notre
on
rapport
CMB
annuel
in
annuel
our
publié
yearly
l'année prochaine.
report
Tout à fait.
next summer.
D'accord, merci.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Christophe, on nous parle
Christophe,
des États-Unis maintenant. Alors, je vais
we're
revenir
going to
deux
talk about the
questions.
States
Une
now, so we
question
have
sur
one or two
le
questions.
Nasdaq.
One about the
L'entrée du lycée
Nasdaq
américain.
and
Un actionnaire considère que ce serait la suite logique de notre
entering
aventure.
on the stock exchange.
Est-ce que
in
c'est
the
le cas dans
States.
ta tête? Comment tu
And
vois les choses
what is the logical
Deuxième thème.
Et alors le deuxième thème, c'est
next? And
l'arrivée
the second
effectivement
question
de
is
Grey Scheme. On développe une
D'accord.
relation
Grey
investisseur aux
scheme.
États-Unis.
We are
Qu'est-ce qui se
attracting
passe?
investors in the States.
Quelle est la
What's
stratégie?
happening? What is the strategy?
Donc,
etc.
je vous rappelle qu'on
So
a
I'd like to remind you
recruté donc,
that
Grace
we
pour nous aider
recruited Grace
sur
to
tout ce
help
qui est
us
investor
with
relations aux États-Unis.
investor
C'est
relations in
essentiel
the States,
de se faire connaître
and
aux
that is
États-Unis.
essential
Et on passe beaucoup de
to be
temps
known in the States, and we spend a lot
grâce
of
à elle à
time
recruter
thanks
des
to her
investisseurs, à rencontrer
meeting
des investisseurs
in
américains de
American
premier rang
investors
qui montrent un intérêt
of very high
vraiment
value
de
and
plus
who
en
are
plus fort
showing an
pour
increasing
Medincell.
interest cost in
Alors, comme aujourd'hui, on n'a pas de plan d'augmentation de capital,
intend to increase our capital.
Parce que
we're contacting them because I was an investor in a previous life, and investment is a long-term process. You need to establish a trustful relationship. And therefore, we're doing this for the future so that one day they can take an interest in the company, either to invest directly or in a secondary process, or to help us to fund royalties. I don't think you talked about this, but that can be one of the vectors in order to increase our cash flow.
Donc ce travail, c'est un véritable travail de fond. D'ailleurs, on sera de nouveau à San Francisco
we will once again be in San Francisco mid-June.
Mi-janvier, pardon.
Oh no, sorry,
mid-January.
To meet these.
Donc l'autre question, c'était le Nasdaq.
So the other question was the Nasdaq.
Je connais relativement bien aussi.
So I'm quite familiar with that because I was on the board of a French biotech company that is on the Nasdaq. And today, it's not a short-term objective for the company for two main reasons. First of all, Nasdaq is very costly. It costs $5 million per year.
À cause de tout ce qui est assurance personnelle des dirigeants.
All of
et puis aussi parce que on n'a pas aujourd'hui le besoin des use of proceeds, donc les besoins financiers. En général, on a besoin d'une centaine de millions pour aller
where you need 100 million
Par contre,
onto the Nasdaq, to be
en
listed
toile
on
de
the
fond,
Nasdaq. However,
petit à petit, on fait les activités
background,
pour s'y
little by
préparer.
little, we are
Pour que le cas échéant,
so that
dans le futur, si on juge que c'est une étape
if we
importante
judge
pour la
that this would be an
société,
important step for the company, that we
Après,
could engage in this direction.
quand on regarde ça,
But when
avec
we
un peu de
look at
recul,
this
dans le contexte
with a bit
d'une
of
société qui
hindsight,
pourrait
within the
devenir
context of a
profitable
company that
horizon,
could be
3
profitable
ans,
in the next 3 years, we hope at least.
Qu'elle soit au Nasdaq ou à Euronext,
on the Nasdaq
et si le potentiel de royalties
if the
est
potential of
aussi
royalties
important
is
qu'on le
as
pense,
high as we think it
je peux
will
vous
be,
garantir qu'on
I can
attirera les
guarantee
investisseurs américains
that we will attract American
directement
investors
aussi
directly.
sur Euronext. Donc
with Euronext.
voilà aujourd'hui comment on voit les choses.
That's how we see things today.
Alors, une autre question.
Okay, so
un actionnaire nous dit que nous assistons en ce moment à
said
plusieurs
that
retraits
today
sociétés des marchés en raison de faible intérêt des investisseurs. Pourriez-vous vous engager que nous ne subissions pas le même scénario avec
And you commit to the fact that we won't
un petit
experience
commentaire.
the same
Les
scenario
petits
with
porteurs que nous
Medicell.
sommes seraient frustrés
And
après
as small shareholders, we would be frustrated after so many years
Je
of
ne peux pas m'y engager parce qu'on peut pas
I
présager
cannot
du
commit to
futur
this
dans
because
un
we don't
contexte
know what the future holds in
qui évolue tout le temps.
with a stock
Mais par
exchange
contre, je
that
peux
is
garantir
changing
qu'on a
very
aujourd'hui
volatile. But I can say
plan
that
pour aller
today
dans
we
cette
have no
direction.
plan to head in that direction at all.
Et clairement,
And quite clearly,
si on arrive
if
à atteindre
we
l'objectif qu'on a décrit
achieve
tout à
the
l'heure
objective that
avec
we
Stéphane,
described earlier on with
je pense que
Stefan,
l'histoire
I
de
think that
Medicell
the
continuera à être belle,
Medicell story
mais là, elle
will
continuera à être
continue to
belle
be a beautiful one.
sur des
It
sujets financiers et de
will be
valorisation.
beauty in
Puisque
terms
là,
of financial
le potentiel de royalties, on l'a décrit,
valorization, because
peut-être de
we describe the
dizaines de
potential for
millions
royalties. It can
à
represent
l'horizon de la fin de
dozens
la
of millions
décennie.
by the end of the
pourrait
decade,
être même
and it could
quelques centaines,
even be a few
dans certains
hundred
cas de figure.
million in certain
Donc
cases.
je vous laisse faire les calculs.
So you can do the math.
Et en tout cas, c'est
And
ce que je dis.
in any case, that's what we're targeting.
Merci. Alors, une
Thank you.
question un peu technique, mais qui est
A technical
importante.
question,
On
but
nous demande
it's important.
d'expliciter
We're
l'impact
asked to
d'être
explain the impact of being
qualifié de
qualified
preferred
as a
drug
preferred drug
par certains États américains
by certain American
et en
states,
quoi ça peut impacter
and
les
how
ventes
this can impact
de
the
USAID.
sale
Donc, on allait
of
interroger
USAID.
notre
So
département de
let's,
market
we
access à ce
question
sujet-là. Donc, je te laisse.
C'est vrai, d'ailleurs, je l'ai vu parce
market
que
action
qui
department
s'intéresse à
on this
Medicell
question.
sur
Yeah, there are a lot
Twitter,
of
enfin,
people
X
who are
maintenant.
taking interest on
des
Medicell
dessus, on
on
voit
Twitter
parfois,
now.
tiens, preferred drug au
Sometimes
Canada.
we
Alors, qu'est-ce
see
que ça
what
veut
is
dire là
a
pour que
drug.
tout le
What
monde
does it
comprenne
mean?
En fait, c'est une classification qui est
Well, it is
utilisée
a
aux
classification that
États-Unis.
is used in the
Les médicaments sont
The
classés
drugs
en fonction de leur taux de
are
prise en charge.
according to
Et preferred drug, ça veut dire que c'est un
level
médicament
of,
qui n'est pas
they're paid
génériqué
for
et qui
by
est très bien pris en charge.
Medi-Aid,
Donc
etc.
UZEDY est dans cette
So
catégorie-là,
UZEDY
et
is
ce n'est
in
pas le seul,
the
puisque
category of
tous les
preferred
produits
drug. It's
concurrents
not the only
aujourd'hui,
one, because all of the competitor
long
products
acting, sont
today,
aussi dans
with
cette catégorie-là,
LAI also
et ça
figure
lève
in
les
this
obstacles à la
category,
prescription.
and it raises obstacles
Très
to
bien.
prescription.
Donc, j'espère que c'est clair pour tout le monde. Encore une fois, si vous
I
voulez
hope that's
plus de
clear to
précisions, vous nous
everybody. If
posez
you
la
want more
question.
clarifications, then
Mais
ask us the
En fait, c'est un
question.
passage un peu obligé
But
pour un
actually, this
médicament
is
comme
mandatory
UZEDY, en
for
fait,
a drug
d'être
such as the UZEDY
qualifié de
to
preferred
be
drug.
qualified as a preferred drug. Okay.
Alors, on n'a pas les
Yeah, we
investisseurs.
don't
Et alors, une dernière question
so
qu'on
the
a
final
reçue
question that we received
financière de la société,
regarding the financial visibility of the
on
company.
se souvient de ce qu'on a dit.
One of our shareholders
C'est
remembers
référence à
what
ce
we
que tu
said
disais,
and refers
Christophe,
to
il y a
what
à
you
peu
were
près
saying,
6 mois de
Christophe,
cela,
about
donc au
6
mois de juin
months ago
dernier, tu nous
in
disais
last
que
January. You were
notre
saying
visibilité
that
financière
our visibility,
va nous
financial
amener au-delà
visibility would lead us
des deux phases 3, les
beyond
résultats de deux phases 3,
the results of the
donc
two phase
celle de
3s,
et celle de MDC,
MDC,
Quelque chose qu'on
TJK, and
On reste dans cette ligne-là
CWM.
a priori.
Yes, absolutely. We're dead on
On
track
devrait avoir les
because
résultats
we should
donc,
have the
de
results of MDC, CWM in the first quarter of
Et
the
comme
year.
on l'a
And
expliqué
as we
tout à l'heure,
explained earlier on,
ceux de MDC,
those of MDC,
TJK dans la deuxième
in
moitié,
the second half
peut-être même au
of the
début de cette
semester,
deuxième
or
moitié,
maybe the
comme
beginning
Richard
of the second half
suggéré
of the
tout à
semester of 2024, as suggested
Alors
by
je
Richard
complète la
earlier on.
question parce
And I
que
would
la
like to
question
add to this
deux
question
parties.
because there was
Je me tourne vers toi,
in two
Stéphane.
parts. I'm turning to you,
Donc ton
Stéphane.
prédécesseur lui
Your
disait que notre
predecessor
visibilité
said that our
financière
financial visibility
pouvait nous amener
should
jusqu'à
take us
minima,
at
jusqu'au
least
dernier
until the
trimestre
final
2025.
quarter of 2025.
Qu'à ce moment-là,
And that
les
at that
revenus
point,
d'Usédi
the
pourraient
revenue
commencer
from
à
USD
couvrir nos
could begin to
dépenses
cover our
opérationnelles.
operational expenditure.
Ouais, alors là-dessus,
Yeah, well,
j'avoue que je serais un
I must say that I would be maybe a little bit more conservative than he was in the current state of affairs. Our cash horizon will take us into the first semester of 2025, but all of this, of course, remains subject to
nouvelles supplémentaires,
additional
avec
good news
éventuellement
and with
des nouveaux
possibly
partenariats.
new
Donc,
partners.
encore une fois, on a,
So
on
once
a du
again,
temps devant nous en
we
termes
have
de cash,
time ahead
et,
of us in terms of cash.
voyons ce que les mois à
Let's
venir
see
nous réservent.
what the coming months bring us.
Alors,
Thank you. So we have finished all of the questions.
Je vais vous adresser celles que nous
Now
venons
I'm
de
going to
recevoir
ask you
pendant
the
la
ones
conférence.
just received
Et les deux
in the
premières
conference.
questions,
And the two
elles
first
proviennent de
questions
Shane
come from
Ama,
Shane Amma,
chez Jefferies.
who is an
Et
analyst
vous savez, on
with
était à la
Jefferies.
dernière
And you know that
conférence de crise, on est suivi
we
par,
went to the
par
last
Jefferies maintenant.
Jefferies conference, and we are
On nous
followed by
demande, alors
Jefferies now.
je traduis, si on a des
We
chiffres
asked if we have
sur les parts de marché du USD
figures on the
depuis
market
son
shares of
lancement,
USD since
et
its
quels
launch,
sont les
and
objectifs en
what
termes
are
de
the
pixels
objectives in terms
parts
of
de
peak
marché
sales and market shares
pour USD.
for USD.
Christophe.
Ce sont deux
Christophe,
chiffres que Teva
These are two
ne
figures
communique
that
pas pour le
Teva
moment.
is not
Le seul chiffre
communicating
qu'ils aient
yet. The only
communiqué,
figure
c'est
that they
celui
have
que nous
communicated
avons
is the one
commenté
that
tout à
we
l'heure.
had commented
C'est
earlier
que
on,
Teva
and that is
a atteint
that Teva has
55%
achieved
de
55%
nouvelles prescriptions
of
sur
new
les patients
prescriptions
qui
in
vont
patients
basculer sur des
that will be
injectables d'ongle
switching
d'action
to
risperidone,
LAIs of
qui sont
risperidone,
une petite
but
partie
which are only a
du
small
marché
part
potentiel
of the
des études.
potential market for
Alors, de
users.
manière générale, on peut s'attendre.
So generally speaking,
Deuxièmement, sur le pixel, si on n'a pas
secondly, on the peak
d'informations,
sales, if we have
on
no
a juste
information,
des
we
estimations
just have
des autres
estimations
analystes
from
de la place
other
qui suivent
analysts
Teva,
who are following Teva,
mais uniquement
but
sur les chiffres
only
2024.
for the figures
Ce
for
ne sont pas les
2024.
Ouais.
So
On peut peut-être
those
rappeler
are not
qu'à
peak
l'époque,
sales.
le
Maybe we
CEO
can
Teva
recall that at the
disait
time,
qu'il
the
targetait
CEO of
20%
Teva
d'un marché qui est au moins
said
qui
it was
en vaut,
20%
qui valait à
of a
l'époque 4
market
milliards,
that
mais
at that
qui continue de
time
croître. Alors,
was worth
je
4 billion,
pense
but
que
Si vous laissez
is
penser
continuing
que
to
ça
grow,
pourrait être un blockbuster
which leads
au
us to
milliard,
think that it can
il
be
ne faut
a
aucune annonce,
blockbuster.
Suite à
They've
ces
made
premiers
no
chiffres.
announcements following
Et
these
je pense
initial
qu'ils en diront
figures, and I
plus
think that they will say a
une fois
bit
qu'ils
more
auront atteint le full
once
access
they've achieved
aux
full
États-Unis,
access in the United
courant
States
2024.
during
Et
2024.
il est évident qu'à ce
And it's
moment-là,
quite
il y aura
obvious
des
that
vraies
at that
tendances
point that we will be able to
qui pourront
see real
communiquer au
trends
marché.
that they will be able to communicate to the
Je
market.
rajoute qu'effectivement, ils
I would
devraient
like to
communiquer
add
courant
that yes, they should be
2024 quand le full
communicating
access
during
sera
2024
obtenu.
once they've obtained
Et
full access.
dans la mesure où USD est
And
quand même un
insofar
des
as
produits
USD
phares de
is
leur
one of the
portefeuille de
beacon
produits
products
innovants,
of
on
their
peut s'attendre à
portfolio
avoir
of
des
innovative
détails,
products,
de plus en plus de
I'm sure
détails
that
sur
we will have
sur
an
les
increasing
performances
amount of
commerciales
details
de
on the
ce produit.
marketing performance
La deuxième
of the
question
product.
vient aussi de
The second
Shane
question
de
also
Jefferies
comes
qui nous
from Shane
demande
from
si on peut
Jefferies,
attendre
who asks us whether we can wait.
quels sont nos programmes qui
What
devraient
are the
rentrer en
programs
clinique
that
cette
should
année.
enter into clinical
Est-ce qu'on
phase
peut en
this
dire
year?
plus sur quand
Can
est-ce
we
que
say a
ça
bit
pourrait
more
arriver?
on when
Peut-être
it might happen?
Richard ou Christophe peut-être
Richard or
d'abord.
Christopher, maybe first?
Donc on a trois
Yeah,
programmes.
we have three
MDC,
programs, MDC,
MDC,
WWM, and MDC
et MDC
GRT and
Et,
MDC
donc on n'a pas donné
SM.
de détails
So we
sur
haven't given
l'entrée
any
clinique,
details on
précisément.
the clinical phases.
Merci
precisely.
Christophe.
Thank you, Christophe.
Alors je continue.
I
On nous
will
dit
continue. We've been
que
told
on nous
that
demande en gros, donc
the
Arnaud nous
question is,
demande si on
Arnaud
peut
is
donner,
asking
si on a une idée de ce que pourraient représenter
whether
les
we can have an
royalties de
idea of what
UZD
the
sur le
USD
second
royalties
semestre
might
et si on veut
present in the second
communiquer
semester. And if we want to communicate on this, Stefan, I'll let you answer that one.
La réponse, David.
Well, you know the answer, David. Unfortunately, we cannot give any forecasts of this type.
On nous demande également si nous
And we're also
prévoyons de
asked
faire
whether we
un point
plan
trimestriel sur les royalties reçues.
Have a
Je pense que la
quarterly overview
communication
on the
qu'on
royalties
fera, elle est,
received.
nous,
I
elle est
think that
semestrielle. Après, elle pourra être
our
une
communication
communication
is
de Teva qui
half
pourrait
yearly,
commencer
but
sur l'année
this information
2024.
could come also from Teva, who might
on sera dans le
begin to
foulée
communicate at the
de ces
beginning of
communications. Je rappelle,
2024.
c'est Teva de toute manière
It
qui
is
est la manette sur la
Teva
commercialisation
who,
des produits
is
aux
at
États-Unis pour le moment.
the joystick for marketing in the
Alors,
States.
on nous demande quelle est la part de
We're asked
CMB
what the share of CMB is
dans les revenus d'activité
in
du premier
the
semestre.
business revenues of the
Et à quel
first
niveau le situez-vous pour le
semester,
second
and where do
semestre?
you stand for the
Alors,
second
je pense que
semester?
l'information elle est clairement dans les chiffres.
So I
qu'on
think
a
the information is
aujourd'hui.
clearly in the figures that we published today. So once again, we received 650,000 euros from CMB. That's a little bit less than 10% of our half-yearly turnover. And on the question of forecasts for the year, unfortunately, I cannot make any forecasts.
Question suivante, Stéphane.
Next question, Stéphane, can you guarantee that Medincell will never be financed by OCAPSA?
Est-ce que des accords sont prévus?
Clairement, c'est
No,
pas
well,
un
clearly,
sujet
it is
aujourd'hui.
not on the
C'est
table today.
évident.
That's quite
Donc
obvious.
je pense qu'on a balayé
I
tout à
think
l'heure
that
toutes les
earlier on we
possibilités,
looked at the entire range of
qui s'offrent à
possibilities
nous en termes de
open to
financement.
us in terms of
Donc ça, c'est
funding.
bien évidemment ce qui
So
vient en
the
tout dernier
CAPS
lieu.
is
Donc,
really the
jamais,
very
je
last
vais jamais dire jamais, mais
resort.
aujourd'hui, il n'y a aucun
So we never
élément
say
dans notre
never,
radar
but today there is
qui nous
nothing
oriente
on
vers
our radar
cette solution-là,
that
qui est
would
effectivement
encourage us to
plutôt
move towards
destinée
this
à
solution,
des sociétés qui ont
which
épuisé
is
tous les
more destined more for
leviers
companies who have
possibles de
no
financement.
other possible resources of
Non,
funding.
c'est pas
So no, not
Bon,
a
sur
topic
les
for
augmentations
us.
de capital, on y
And on
répond tout à l'heure.
increases of
Aujourd'hui,
capital, we
ce n'est
answered
pas
earlier on.
d'actualité.
That's not on the table
Question
either
suivante.
today.
Alors,
Next question.
Christophe, je te pose la question.
So Christophe, this question is
Christian
for
nous
you.
demande quelle serait
Christian is
aujourd'hui la
asking
valeur
what
théorique
today
de
the
rachat de
theoretical
Medincell
value
si
for
Medincell était à vendre.
buying
Je sais pas dans
Medincell
quelle
would be
mesure on
if
peut
Medincell
répondre
was for sale.
cette,
I don't know how far we can answer that question, actually.
Je ne peux pas répondre.
Well, I cannot answer.
Par contre,
However,
je peux vous donner mon sentiment
I can give you
personnel,
my
je ne donnerai pas des
personal
chiffres.
opinion. I won't give you any
Mon sentiment,
figures,
évidemment,
but my
partagé, c'est que la société,
personal opinion
clairement,
is that the
sous-évaluée
company
aujourd'hui.
is clearly undervalued
Et a
today.
pâti du crack biotech.
And it
Maintenant,
suffered from the
en
biotech
fonction de ce qui va arriver dans les mois et
breakdown.
dans les années
And
qui
in the
viennent,
coming
ça
months
pourrait
and
changer,
years,
j'espère,
things
rapidement.
can change quickly.
Et puis surtout, si on
And
arrive
above all, if we
à
manage
enclencher
to
cette route vers la profitabilité.
engage
Si
in
j'étais
this
investisseur,
pathway to
je
profitability, if I were
regarderais les
investor,
tendances sur
I
UZD,
would look at the
évidemment,
trends
qui vont arriver en
with UZD
2024.
before we reach
Et les tendances sur
2024.
UZD vont clairement donner une feuille de route pour
Well,
voir si nos
clearly give
hypothèses
a roadmap
peuvent se réaliser.
see whether
Et puis aussi donneront confiance
by hypothesis and
dans la
can
capacité
also
Teva
build
à
trust
faire
in
la
the
même chose,
capacity of
voire
Teva
mieux
doing the same thing,
avec
or
TJK qui
better
doit avoir
with
un ramp-up plus rapide.
TJK, which should benefit from a
Voilà,
faster
donc
ramp-up.
c'est un peu une réponse de,
So that is
comment on
the
dit,
answer.
De Normand.
de Normand, voilà.
You know,
Mais
my
en tout
answer,
cas,
which is not
C'est compliqué de répondre à cette
Voilà, c'est
question.
aujourd'hui.
Pour nous, on peut difficilement apporter des réponses.
we
Tout à
can't
fait. Et
really
puis après,
bring
si on
any
se
concrete
projette
answers. And then
et
if
qu'on
we
arrive
look forward
effectivement
and
à atteindre cette
we can achieve
profitabilité
this
et
profitability
à avoir ces royalties qu'on
and
évoquait tout à l'heure,
obtain the royalties we mentioned earlier on,
bah là, les valorisations potentielles
the
sont sans
potential
commune mesure
valorization
avec ce qu'on a aujourd'hui. C'est
are staggering compared to today.
c'est pas dans 10 ans, en tout cas.
And it won't be in
on
10
parle,
years'
c'est,
time. We're
c'est dans
talking
les
about
quelques années qui viennent.
in the coming few years.
On arrive au bout en principe, mais je propose
So this brings us to the end, but
minutes encore pour
let's
aller au bout
stay
des
a
questions
few
qu'on
minutes
nous a
to
Avec
envoyées.
plaisir, oui, bien
take
sûr.
all of the
Richard,
questions.
on nous demande au sujet de GRT.
Richard,
on nous
we're
dit
being
un
asked
des
for
principaux soucis
JRT. One
de
of the main
Taconimus,
concerns
c'est
of
sa
economists
toxicité.
is its toxicity.
Pouvez-vous confirmer que
Can
les
you
études
confirm that
précliniques
the
sont favorables
preclinical
et que cela
studies
ne
are
devrait pas poser
favorable
de soucis
and
pour
that they
l'étude
should
de
not be
phase 1?
concerned for the phase 1 study?
On évoque aussi, pouvez-vous
well,
confirmer le
Can you also
démarrage
confirm
au
the
premier semestre 2024?
start-up in the
Est-ce que c'est
first
toujours le
quarter
cas?
of
Est-ce que c'est toujours
2024?
notre
Is this
timeline?
still our
Richard.
timeline? Richard, over to you.
Yeah, so it's again premature to disclose any of our non-clinical data. Just know that we have done extensive non-clinical animal toxicology, pharmacokinetic testing on GRT, which we believe puts it in a good position to move into the clinic sometime in the coming year. And again, as Christophe said, we're not disclosing any exact timelines to start the phase 1.
La prochaine question.
The next question, Christophe. Same topic.
On nous demande, mais
we're
avec
asked
qui de prochains partenariats, à quelle échéance, en gros,
who will be the next partner and when will it be? Shareholders would like to know about this.
C'est évidemment une question
Well, obviously, this is a question that I cannot answer.
Voilà.
And that's it, folks.
Évidemment.
Of course.
Et donc, on va en rester
là. And so, we're going to stop there.
D'accord, merci. Shane de Jeffries nous demande
Shane from Jeffries is asking whether we can clarify the sales force of Teva for UZD. How big is it today?
Est-ce qu'on peut donner des informations
Can we give any information on the marketing budget that Teva has allocated to the launch of UZD?
Je pense que Teva avait rendu
I think
public
that
avec
Teva
quelques
has
centaines de
published
sales reps aux
the
États-Unis.
fact there are a few hundred
Par contre, ils n'ont
sales
pas
reps in the States,
communiqué
but they haven't
sur
yet
leur budget
communicated
de lancement.
on the launch
Mais on peut
budget.
imaginer qu'il soit extrêmement
But we
conséquent
can imagine that
quand
this is
UZD
very
est
sizable
en tête de liste
because UZD is
de
at the top
produits
of the list of
qui peuvent, d'après
products
la
that
présentation du
can,
président, ramener
depending on the
Teva à
presentation
la
of the
croissance.
president of Teva, bring Teva back
J'envoie un peu tout le
into
monde
a
aussi
growth phase.
vers les dernières conférences que Teva a pu tenir à Evercore il y a quelques jours, il y a une quinzaine de jours, lors des présentations de résultats du
and they
troisième
presented the
trimestre,
results of the
où
third
Sven,
quarter,
le patron
and
du
Zoem, who
commercial
is the
US,
boss of
sales,
sales in
détaillé la
United
stratégie,
States,
parler de
detailed
nombreux
the
échantillons
strategy
gratuits
and
qui ont
talked about
été
the numerous free
distribués.
samples that
Et
have been
vraiment,
handed
notre
out.
partenaire se montre très offensif.
And our partner is very offensive.
Dont il se présente.
Tout à fait.
Voilà.
Absolutely.
On en saura, j'espère,
So,
plus
we
prochainement.
hope that we will know more in the near future.
Concernant
Regarding
CWM, donc notre programme avec
CWM,
notre partenaire AIC,
our program with
dans la
our
douleur
partner
post-opératoire,
AIC
quelle
for
sera votre
post-op
stratégie en cas de
pain,
succès?
what will
Envisagez-vous
be
un
your strategy
partenariat
in
pour
the
la
case of success? Do you
commercialisation?
envisage a partnership for marketing? Christophe.
Ça va dépendre d'abord des
Well, that will
résultats
depend
de la
on
première phase
the
3.
results of the first phase
Et
3.
il
And
y aura une deuxième
There will be
phase 3,
a
voire
second
peut-être
phase
deux
3 or
en
maybe
parallèle.
even
Richard l'avait
two
déjà expliqué.
parallel, in
Et là, c'est
parallel,
des
as
discussions
Richard
que nous
explained.
aurons avec notre
And these are
partenaire
discussions that we will hold
pour
with our partner
optimiser
to optimize
la recherche de partenaires. Donc, le débat qu'il y
search
aura,
for
c'est est-ce qu'on
partners. And
cherche
the
un
debate there
partenaire
will be is
plutôt
will we be looking
qui
for a
financera
partner who will
le reste de la
fund
clinique,
the
sachant
rest of the
qu'aujourd'hui,
clinical
c'est AIC
studies,
qui la finance.
given that today AIC
Ou
is financing
que nous
this, or
attendrons les résultats
we will be
complémentaires
waiting for additional
des
results
phases cliniques
of the clinical successive
pour le faire.
clinical phases to do this.
AIC pourrait envisager
AIC
aussi
could
continuer
also
l'aventure et démarrer une commercialisation en levant les
to
fonds
launch the marketing
nécessaires
by
pour le faire.
raising
Donc il y a
the
plusieurs
funds to do
scénarios
this. So there are a number of
aujourd'hui que nous
scenarios
discutons avec
today
notre partenaire,
and that we will discuss with
qu'on
our
commencera à
partner
discuter
and that we'll start to
donc,
discuss
courant 2024 quand
in
les résultats
2024 once we have the
Il
results.
reste 3 questions, ce sera les
There are
dernières.
3 questions last. These
Question,
will be the
alors,
last.
on va pouvoir difficilement y
Left,
répondre,
this
mais je
one.
la
Question we
repose
won't be able
quand
to answer,
même.
but I will
Le président de la
ask it
société
anyway.
a parlé récemment,
President
c'était
of the
Jeffries, je
company
crois,
spoke
que
recently.
Medincell est much bigger
Medincell is
que
much
les sociétés
bigger
qu'il avait pu avoir
than the
auparavant.
company
On te demande
was
directement,
previously.
quel est
So,
ton avis
Christophe, what is your
à ce
opinion
sujet-là?
on that subject?
Je ne peux pas commenter.
Well, I cannot comment.
Je ne peux pas commenter. Je crois que la dernière avait été cédée pour 15 milliards.
I think that the last one was sold for 15
je plaisantais
billion.
souvent en 2018-2019 en disant que
In
Medincell
2019,
avait
I
un
often
jour
said
au
that
CAC 40.
Medincell
Par
could
contre, j'ai jamais dit quand.
go onto the French stock exchange, but I never said when.
Donc, écoutez, ça va
So,
dépendre évidemment
depend, obviously,
du succès,
on
comme tout à l'heure, hein, c'est cette question de fameuse question de
success.
valorisation.
It's
Ça
this
va
question of
dépendre
valorization. It will all depend
du succès
on
du
the
ZEDI,
success
de
of
TJK,
UZD and
du reste de
TJK
notre pipeline.
and the duration of our
On est
pipeline.
vraiment à ce qui pourrait être un point d'inflexion. En
We are
tout cas,
really at
on
an
l'espère,
inflection point, at least we hope so.
puisque
A turning point, because
l'approbation du ZEDI
the
est une
approval of
validation
UZD
de la technologie
was
qui
a real
enlève
validation of our
tous les
technology,
freins
which
à
removes all
beaucoup de
obstacles
sociétés
to
pour,
many companies
travailler avec nous.
with regard to
Donc,
working with us.
on saura dans les
So in the 12-24 coming months, we will know whether this turning point is as significant as we believe it is, and could lead the company towards its next growth phase. Thank you, Christophe. I will directly answer the two last questions because we're asked which indication of risperidone was tested in Phase 1 for Medincell and Teva. Teva is doing it for it's doing preclinical studies, not clinical, but preclinical studies for an additional indication for risperidone, but it's strategic and it is not public today. The second question is clarification where I said that the press release you mentioned 650 million euros of user D and it talks about Teva. So the 650,000 euros, sorry, is zero royalties on the net sales of Teva in the States since May, June, when they started marketing until the end of September. And there is also the equivalent 635,000 for user D and 630,000 for CBM materials. This has brought us to the end of this meeting. Thank you very much to all of the shareholders who have been very present today and who have asked us a lot of questions. Thank you to everybody. Christophe, would you like to say a final word? Well, yes, thank you for your questions. We hope that the coming months will be exciting with user D, with TJK, and maybe other things as well. So,
dans les mois qui viennent. En tout cas, merci pour votre confiance. Bonne fête à tous. Profitez de vos familles, de vos amis. Et à très bientôt.
Merci beaucoup à tous. Merci Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Merci Christophe. Et on vous souhaite à tous de très bonnes fêtes de fin d'année.
I wish you very good end of year celebrations and see you all soon. Have a great evening.